Greetings, this is Griff Ruby with part 40 of my series on Ecclesiology for Sedevacantists based on the Dogmatic Theology, Volume 2, Christ Church by Msgr G. Van Noort. Before proceeding into the new section, though, I realized after concluding my part 39 that there was one other point that I didn't quite get to. And that had to do with the fact that if you recognize that the four signs of the four marks of the church are obviously built by the, set out by the Catholic Church, and the basic principles of why they're significant, namely that they were things that were of a supernatural character and couldn't be duplicated on mere human effort alone, which is why we chose those. And then you look at that and you look at how the traditional Catholics fulfill all those marks, then you're either admitting we are the Catholic Church, which, yeah, you could say, well, you set your own definition for what makes you the true church and you lived up to it. Implicit in that statement is the realization, even if unconscious, that you're acknowledging that we traditional Catholics are, in fact, that historic Catholic Church. But let's say you're not prepared to accept that fact. Let's say, no, I can't be that. It's got to be somebody else or nobody at all, or it's hidden away, it's, whatever. Well, then you have to account for this rather unusual fact. You see, whenever anybody's come up with any set of criteria for this sort of thing, it's themselves that live up to the criteria, is it not? Now you have the Catholic Church came up with these four criteria, these four marks of the church. If we're them and we're living up to them, that is per the pattern. That is what one would expect. If we were really something else, some carbon copy of the church, let's say, you still have the curious fact that here we are living up to those things. That if that were so, we wouldn't be the authors of. You see? See, each person lives up to whatever marks they come up with, not whatever marks or criteria somebody else comes up with, you see? They live up to their own. We live up to the Catholic marks. So either we have done something absolutely unique in being able to live up to and be the only ones living up to a set of criteria set up by somebody else, or we are that somebody else. We are the church and must be so recognized. Let us now dive in. We are continuing now the church's unity as a property on page 126. Preliminary remarks. It was demonstrated above that Christ founded just one church. So the present article is concerned not with the unity of the church as opposed to plurality, but rather with internal unity as opposed to division within the church itself. This will involve a study of the bonds of unity which hold together the true church of Christ. All Christians agree that the true church of Christ is unified in one way or another, but non-Catholics acknowledge only a spiritual principle of unity. If they occasionally acknowledge external bonds also, they make them quite elastic. Catholic teaching has it that the Church, by the institution of its founder, and hence necessarily and essentially, enjoys a threefold unity which is external and visible, namely unity of doctrine and profession, unity of communion, and unity of government. The Vatican Council says, "Our eternal pastor willed to build a holy church in which all the faithful would be bound together by the bond of the one faith and of charity, and in order that the universal fold might be kept in oneness of faith and communion by priests who would themselves be joined in close union, he gave St. Peter charge over the other apostles, and thereby established in his person the unfailing principle and visible foundation of both unities." And Leo XIII. Since the Church's divine founder had determined that it should be one in belief, in rule, and in communion, he selected Peter and his successors to be the principal and, as it were, the focal point of unity. Proposition: Christ willed that his church enjoy unity of faith and of profession, creedal unity, which consists in this, that all the members of the church hold and make profession of the same doctrine as it is presented for belief by the church's teaching office. And actually, you don't find that in the Novus Ordo. You got some who say abortion's fine. You got some who say there should be priestesses. You got some who say all sorts of crazy things. And you've even got some who kind of want to mix some of these kinds of ideas with some somewhat more Catholic ideas, but they've always got their own little creative, eclectic selection of stuff, you see. But traditional Catholics, we hold the whole counsel of God. So there's no variation outside those legitimate areas where the church has not ruled. Note the phrase, make profession of, for a purely internal assent of the mind to truth does not satisfy the requirements of a visible society such as the church is. This assent must be given clear outward expression as well. Because with the heart a man believes and attains holiness, and with the lips profession of faith is made and salvation is secured. Proof that our Lord so set up his church that it must needs be one in oneness of faith is proved. 1. From the words of Christ and of the apostles, which clearly and unqualifiedly demand that everyone profess the faith preached by the apostles and their successors. Read Matthew 28:18-20, Mark 16:15-17, Galatians 1:8, 1 Corinthians 1:10, Ephesians 4:5, and also 4:13 and 14, and Titus 3:10-11. 2. From the solid conviction of early Christianity. According to St. Justin, real Christians are disciples of the genuine and unsullied doctrine of Jesus Christ and are one mind, one congregation, one church. On the contrary, those who claim to be Christians but do not hold his doctrine are heretics. Hegesippus stigmatizes as heretics those who have each of them privately introduced their own pet opinions, because by introducing strange doctrine they have rent asunder the unity of the church. St. Irenaeus, just as the sun is one and the same all throughout the world, so too the preaching of the truth shines everywhere and enlightens all who desire to arrive at a knowledge of the truth. For the universal church has the one and same faith all throughout the world. See, that's something we really do have. In any part of the world, you find a traditional Catholic, and it could be wherever. It can be in Africa, it can be in Japan, it can be in Australia, South America, North America, any part of Europe, colonies in Antarctica, wherever. You see, the traditional Catholicism is always one and the same. It's always the one and the same magisterium. And I might add also one and the same calendar, one and the same beliefs, doctrines, catechisms. It's all one and the same because we are all one and the same church. We all have our basis in the apostolic pastors that came from the beginning. So, where the Novus Ordo cannot claim that. Everybody's a religion to themselves over there. Okay. St. Augustine lists 88 heresies and then concludes, there may be or may arise other heresies, but if anyone espouses one of them, he will not be a Catholic Christian. So, see, I don't have that list in front of me, but if anybody cares to dig it up, I put real money on the claim that 88, you can find several, maybe even a lot, that are affirmed by the Novus Ordo, or by the East Orthodox, or by the Protestants, or by anybody else you could name as any sort of Christian in any sense of the word. And you will also find all 88 are clearly, totally, utterly, and explicitly repudiated by traditional Catholics, by the entire Catholic group, movement, or community, or whatever you want to call us, by the whole church. It doesn't matter. You can go to the Pius X, the Pius V, the CMRI, and the remaining few independents, the Trento priests, other various societies in different parts of the world, and it's always the same thing, and not one of those 88 or any of the others are embraced by any of us. And given the wide distribution, and at some degrees a significant lack of communication, that is a miracle. Well, I'm going to cut it off here, page 127. The next part will continue that some more. Thank you.